Welcome to the Agricultural Science Taster. This science subject is one of our only subjects to have reformed or changed at senior cycle level. So we know that the junior cycle science course changed a number of years ago. This is the first of the sciences and the first of all of the Leaving Cert subjects to change and be updated. This means it's a really interesting subject because it is now up to date and modern with what is current at the moment. Our current Leaving Certs will sit the new course for the first time, the exam in June 2021. So I'm going to move on to the next slide and discuss exactly what's involved with this subject. So with this subject, it's made up of two components. The first component is a 75% final exam, which is a written exam sitting in June as part of your Leaving Cert. And this also includes a 25% research project. So the 25% project was always there for Ag Science. Its format has just changed a little bit. So it's known as the individual investigative study or an individual experimental study. This is a research title that changes from year to year. It's given to students in 5th year at around September, October time. They're given their title, and it's a year and a half project. So it's submitted in March, April time of Leaving Cert year, and like I said, it's worth 25%. This takes the pressure off the final exam because it allows students a chance to have gained almost, if not all, of 25% before entering your written Ag Science exam. The third point there is quite important, that it must be based on a farm enterprise that you have regular access to. For this research project, it has to be carried out based on a farm enterprise. This does not mean that you have to have a farm or that you have to have farming experience. All it means is that you have to have maybe a patch of land or an area of soil that you can carry out an experiment on. If you come from a farming background, this is definitely the right subject to be in, but if you're not from a farming background, like I said, there's no problem. You just need to make sure that you have an area that you can do your experiment on, be it on animals, soil, grassland, anything like this, okay? The research title changes from year to year. So the first year of the title, which is our current Leaving Cert students, which will be examined in June 2021, their title was based around sustainability, so all about the environment. And the current 5th year's title is around conservation, again related to the environment. So we could predict possible themes for your project brief, but it will be tweaked slightly from year to year. Overall, the current 5th and 6th years are getting on really well with their project. There's some really good ideas and it's quite easy to carry out a nice simple experiment and write it up. It's an extension of your CBA from Junior Cert Science, the research experiment of CBA 2, which will be done in 3rd year science. The next part is around the structure of what topics come up. So this year's course, or the current course, is broken up into 4 strands. So the first strand is all to do with scientific practices. So that will be like the scientific method, hypothesizing, etc. from Junior Cert. The next section is soil. Then you have animals and crops. Okay, so they're your main strands. The 4th one I've mentioned there is the 12 specified practical activities or experiments. They're known as mandatory experiments at Junior Cert Science level and in your other senior cycle subjects. These are 12 experiments that will be carried out in class based around a variety of things such as soil, grassland, animals, genetics, etc. The experiments are a really nice component of the Ag course and they're generally very well managed. The wider or cross-cutting themes then for the new Ag Science course, these are things that have been added into the modern course: health and safety, breeding, genetics, sustainability, environment, nutrition and food production. These topics were introduced on the new course because they're so topical at the minute. The likes of sustainability and the environment is something that should have been incorporated into the Ag Science course a long time ago, but it has taken a good while to reform the course to what it is now. As a result of this, though, it makes the subject really interesting and really relatable because, like I said, it is so modern and it is so up to date. Assessment at Leaving Cert, like I said, is 25% project, which will be done in March or April time of the Leaving Cert year. and the exam is worth 75%. I can't emphasize how nice it is from hearing from students to have that 25% done. It really alleviates the pressure come June of your Leaving Cert year, because that project is done, and if enough work is put into it in fifth year, that project can actually be put away and finished by the end of fifth year, which really does take a lot of pressure off at Leaving Cert level. The exam structure is similar to the old course, and it's made up of different sections with different types of questions. There's quite a good bit of choice on the paper as well, which is very positive when it comes to studying. Because the current sixth years are the first year to sit the new course, we haven't any statistics of how well students have done in it, but from looking at the subject and looking at the way the students are reacting and are performing in it, it would be expected that it would be a nice subject to study and that it would be easy to get high marks in once hard work is put in. The emphasis I would like to put on this course though is your 25% project, and that you have to have access to somewhere to do that experiment. That is really, really important, and you'll see on the student interview in a minute or two, that was the main bit of feedback that came back from students. Many people said they wish they had known, I suppose, a bit more about the project before entering the subject. So it has definite positives to have a project, but you just need to make sure that you're adequately prepared for a practical project subject. Okay, so the next slide is just an article taken from the Farmers Journal. I just included this because our current sixth years used the Farmers Journal quite a lot in fifth year. We used to read different articles that were up to date. It's recommended by the IASTA, which is the Association of Agriculture, that we would read the Farmers Journal and be up to date with it. Anyone who has an interest in technology would be very, very interested in the new technological advances in agriculture, because there's a huge amount of stuff that has been produced since the Ag Science course has been developed. So that's a really, really interesting part of it. And it's not only just in articles, but that actually appears on exam questions. So I've included a sample exam question here on the next slide that is in a relation to drones. So that's quite interesting, just coming from a technological point of view and from, I suppose, a point of view of students maybe that have an interest in that kind of thing. There's the technological side to agriculture as well. It's not all farming, all animals. There's a bit of everything. So just to go through some of the student interview and feedback on the subject. So these were from students that have studied ag science. So the first point that was made, and I've quoted these directly, was, I love ag science, I have a huge interest in it, which is a bonus, but overall it's a great subject. So that student is saying they already had a great interest, which was a bonus. The main thing I'd like to see there is that it's a bonus, it's not required. You don't have to be a farmer to do this subject or have an interest in farming. If you have any kind of spark of interest in any of the topics which I mentioned, such as scientific practices, soils, grassland, agricultural technology, the environment, it's a really, really, really well-rounded course. The next point I want you to just see is the second one. So it's a really enjoyable subject. The only thing is you need to consider about needing access to a farm or some area for your project. A lot of students would say that is definitely something to consider before going into the before deciding to pick ag science. It's a great subject, but you need to be prepared that there is a 25% project there and you need access to some area of land. Like I said, I really want to reiterate, you don't need to have a farm, but you need access to some area to carry out the experiment. Some students have managed to carry it out in their back garden and link it back to a farm enterprises, so there is ways around that. If you're unsure, please do ask for a little bit more information on it. There's some more quotes there I'll let you read through, but overall the students that do ag science and complete ag science really, really enjoy it. Okay, so some reasons why you might study ag science. So if you're interested in any of the following careers, so the likes of horticulture, food science, agricultural engineering, environmental science, forestry, farming, marine science. Okay, so anything to do with the outdoors, you'll find a link to agricultural science. This course does not mean if you do ag science you have to go on and do farming. There's loads of different links. Food production is heavily influenced by agricultural science, and that's one that people often forget, but they're really, really interlinked. And we look a good bit at the production of food and how food is produced in Ireland and in other places. Okay, so more questions. So do you come from a farming background? If you do come from a farming background, I would definitely be advising it, but like I said, it's not an obligation. You don't have to be a farmer to sit this subject. Next one, do you enjoy science but find maths difficult? So ag science is often described as a really nice science subject because it doesn't have the heavy equations that maybe another science subject would have. It has quite a large volume of content, but it's all quite understandable. The reason for this is agriculture is something we are familiar with and we can relate to. We're not being asked to imagine very abstract contexts or very abstract ideas. It's all about things we've heard of before, the animals we know about, soils we've heard of. Okay, there's also quite a lot cross curricular links. This will link with biology, geography. Some junior cert subjects would also link on here, like the likes of CSPE, where you looked a little bit maybe at the environment. The last question there, which generally sells it to students, is would you like 25% of your exam done before sitting your written paper? The project is a huge incentive. It's the only one of our science subjects that we can do a project in, and you're awarded good marks for it. Okay, so 25% is given to you before you ever enter your exam hall in June. So overall, it's a really, really good subject. If you have any interest in any of the topics that I've just discussed, I would definitely be considering ag science. If you'd like any further information, feel free to send me an email and I'll answer any questions I can. But it's a great subject, really, really enjoyable.